Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. And my name is Sadhana for those of you who are new here. And welcome to my Thursday night tarot chat. So tonight I'm going to share with you some personal stories about and in relation to everything that's been going on, as well as we're going to look at some of my favorite cards, which I shared with you in the thumbnail, which really kind of reflect the energy of inclusivity and diversity in the tarot. So welcome. Hi, Jen. I see you're here, and Jamie. Thank you for joining me tonight. And Kyle, Liz, you're here live. Wow, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And I had a lot of fun actually putting this thumbnail together. And all week I have been thinking about what I want to say and what I want to do. And there's this side of me that's really kind of analytical and mathematical. And I love making Excel spreadsheets. And so I created one. I created a spreadsheet to use as a checklist to go through with the intention of going through tarot decks and for counting cards as far as POC, age, and different things. And I made all these different columns. Anyway, I did it for one deck and I thought, this is ridiculous, because one of the things that came up last week, well, actually a few things came up last week, and I also have not so much a retraction as an expansion on a couple of the points. And I think that's why I want to do this tonight, because I feel that I want you to get to know me a little bit better as a person. And I want to have an opportunity to share more of what I wanted to say. I think I was a little cryptic last week, and some of the things I said came across in a way that was not entirely what I wanted to say. So yeah, so I hope I don't go rambling off too much tonight, but I really wanted to share with you some of my personal stories. Vaughn Hanshaw. Oh, thank you very much. Welcome. I don't think I've ever seen you comment on a video before. So why don't we just start with these cards that were in the thumbnail, and then I can put them back into their piles. And I'm sure most of you know all of these cards, but I just wanted to really, I wanted to speak to them. And there's actually quite a few more here that I might pull in. And inclusivity, and I know Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and all that's been going on in the US in particular. It's really important for me in every way possible to try and figure out how I can be a better ally to all marginalized groups. And here we are in this month of June, which is dedicated to celebrating the LGBTQ plus community. And the focus is on what's happening in the US and the support and the rallying for the Black community. But I really believe that these two groups work together in supporting each other all the way. And so while the focus may be in one direction, I really think the greater work that is being done is to see everybody and to include everybody. And my whole life, since I was a little girl, actually, I wasn't going to tell this story. I'm going to do the cards after this one. So when I was a little girl, I'm 57. So I'm thinking when I was like 5 or 6 years old, we had family friends. One of my grandmother's friends, and his name was Uncle Bruce. He wasn't an uncle. And Uncle Bruce had a friend named Don. And Don always came up from San Francisco. And Bruce lived in the West End of Vancouver, British Columbia. And Uncle Bruce was, oh my God, he was so much fun. He was so eccentric, and I don't know, for his time, he was very out there. And my family never talked about him being gay. That word, or homosexual, or that word never was something that came up in conversation. We just went to Uncle Bruce's for supper, and sometimes Don was there and sometimes Don wasn't there. And it was just, I don't know, it was just like part of my life, part of my culture, and part of the family that I grew up in. And why is this coming up right now? I don't know, but I'm just saying that I'm looking out into my community, like my whole life has been one of it feels like everybody's always been there. All kinds of people have always been there. I'm sorry, I've got my blue light glasses on today. I know they look horrible on the screen. I just wanted to say hi to, Ange is here, hi, and Audrey. So yeah, so it's been like, I just feel like all of these people have always been a part of my life. And if I didn't say that well last week, I apologize. So I want to start with this card here. This deck, this is Poppy Palin's Everyday Enchantment. Is that the right name? I'm sorry if I don't get the names right. Enchantment Tarot. And I think I really wanted this deck, and I loved this sun card because it reminded me of all of those beautiful women in India. I don't know if you've ever been there, but to walk through the streets of India, especially on a special day when everybody's all dressed up, or they're all going to, a special day, and even not on a special day, the colors of India are so amazing. And to be somewhere and to see all of these colors and the saris and the adornment, and I forget what the number is. It might be like 20 something parts. If anybody knows, you can write it in the chat. Parts of the body that are adorned, right? So that would include the ears and the third eye and various things. And so part of the formal ritual in getting dressed is to adorn all of these 27 body parts or whatever they are. And it's just so beautiful. And so she really reminded me of that experience. And I just knew I had to have this deck. Any deck that had this as the sun card, I knew was going to be a really, really special deck. And then I included the 8 of coins here because this reminds me of, I believe I was in high school. And in high school, I did a lot of volunteer work at a couple of different group homes. I'm just seeing who's here. Shadow's Truth. Yes, at the end of the day, we are all one. A bindi. Yes, a bindi is one of the adornments. The mark at the third eye. So when I was in high school, I volunteered at a couple different group homes for mentally disabled youth. So they were anywhere in age from, I guess, 18, maybe a little bit younger, some of them into their 20s, 30s. And I went there several times a week, and sometimes I would meet them with their support helpers at the community center for everything from swimming to craft projects to sometimes we would go out for a walk or different things. And I forget what this was part of, if it was part of a course or just community service that I was doing, but when I look at this card, it just reminds me of that experience and how much I miss that. Actually, I really do. I don't have any people with Down syndrome in my life right now. It's just something that seems to have, it's not part of my life right now. So I really miss that. There was one woman. So I'm Did you know that I'm not a death doula, but I volunteer for hospice. And so as part of the hospice training at Christmas time, we were at the mall taking donations for hospice. And this one young woman came up, and they were, the hospice has this Christmas tree, and then you write a card and you can send messages, depending on how you look at it, either sending messages to loved ones who've crossed over, or just write a message in memory of someone. And she was able to, she had Downs, and she was able to hold a pen, and she wrote a message to one of her friends that was no longer with us. And yeah, so that was the first time. There's not a lot of people in my community. Yeah, I know one of you was talking on Becca's chat today, or somebody was talking about how, as in white communities, we really don't get to see a lot of, different faces and different, it's really sad. It's really sad. So I think it's an advantage of being in a more, because I'm quite removed from the city. So when you're in the city, you see a lot more disabled people of every kind, and a lot more people from a lot of different cultures. Yeah. So I had to include my motorcycle guy. You guys can laugh. And I've said that I would really like to meet this guy, but yeah, I just find that it's really important, that we embrace all styles, all ways of life, all ways of being. And yeah, people who like to live on the edge, and to be okay with people who don't, people who are a little too tight around the edge. I'm just going to show you, I've got a couple more here this is the last one from Poppy's deck that I'm going to show you. This is the World card, which is absolutely stunning and beautiful and inclusive. And they're making a quilt with all of their practices and all of their life. Kyle's daughter is half Indian. Yeah. And, I actually thought, I don't have any tattoos. And if I ever got a tattoo, I think I would actually get a bindi tattooed. That's something that I've thought of many, many times. Just something really simple, but that's definitely something that I have thought of. Jamie, my Uncle Bob's mom's brother was gay and a heck of a queen. Not to be a downer, but he and his love were killed in 1978. Oh, I'm so sorry. He was 37 or 38, and that was my introduction to gay rights. Yeah, so I have had a lot of gay men, especially in my life. So I worked as a waitress pretty much from the time I was 14. And even so, my first career was school teacher. And so even while I was teaching in the first probably 5 or 6 years, I still worked as a server, as a waitress. And in that industry, I experienced and met a lot of amazing gay men. And so I was very familiar with the culture, and just had a lot of gay male friends. And when it's so hard to refer to my children. I don't like to say their names on camera. One of my children was a competitive figure skater. And so when she got quite high up in skating, a lot of her coaches and her trainers were gay. There's a lot of gay men in figure skating as well, too. And so it was, I don't know, I feel so comfortable. I feel so very comfortable, and just, I don't know, I really don't understand in my heart where the hatred comes from. And I'll tell you a story of my neighbors next door. They're fairly new neighbors. There's two men, they're about 60 years old. They're married, and they moved here last year because in their neighborhood, about a half-hour drive from here, they were basically driven out because it was such a homophobic neighborhood. And that's only half an hour from here. And this little kind of area where I live, we have lesbian couples, we have gay couples, we have Greeks, we have Chinese, we have disabled people. The lady behind me has MS. It's like this, and I'm white, and none of those. And it's just this really cool little tiny little niche of everybody. And within this little block that I live in, I think there's 3 or 4 Reiki masters. So it's pretty cool how all of this, how I ended up in this little pocket. Yes, I had to include my motorcycle fox. Yeah, so those are the few cards from Poppy's deck that I wanted to share with you. And I'm going to weave in a few other stories as we go through. I pulled this deck out today. I forgot that in Bonefire, there was quite a bit of inclusivity. Yeah, that is true community, isn't it? Shadow's truth. Yeah, I was sitting in front of my tarot cabinet and thinking, I had like a new, what would be the deck this one. We talked about Next World Tarot a couple of weeks ago, and Urban Tarot and things like that. And so when I was sitting in front of my, sorry, this one's very glossy, sitting in front of my tarot case, and I'm thinking, what other decks do I have that have a significant number of cards that are representative of people of color, or like, I don't know, diverse groups, people who are marginalized. Like, here's the Queen of Wands, right? So that made me happy when I pulled that out and I saw that many cards that I had that were easy to pull out of that deck. And I thought, okay. So I started to go through and just really embrace, what I want to say. So I was making the spreadsheet. I was talking about that. Sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. And that was my real linear mind. Okay, if a deck is diverse, it needs to include this, 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 and this, or it's not diverse. But then I thought, this is shit. Some decks just really have this beautiful vibe, and they have a really beautiful selection of people of color. And just because that particular deck doesn't include the LGBTQ plus community doesn't make it a bad deck. And just because another deck focuses heavily on LGBTQ plus and not Asian ethnicity doesn't make it a bad deck. Like, I think decks have fortes. And so let's embrace the forte of the decks that we have. And if you don't have decks that have a variety of people, then, today, hopefully I can share with you some of the ones that I have. I did a walkthrough yesterday, a side-by-side of the Muse Tarot. This is from the Muse with the textured tarot. And the textured tarot does have several disabled people in the deck, as well as lots of, this is textured tarot as well, too. People of color. This is my favorite card in the deck. Isn't that sweet? I just really, really love this one. Hey, Paula, I don't know if I said hi to you. So that was that exercise for me. Oh, here's another favorite card. I love this one. That exercise for me in going through that side by side was not so much for this topic as it was for wow, these two decks are really similar in energy, and there's a lot of cards that are very similar, and so it was a good process. But I think both decks have a significant number of cards that do that. This is the Gaian Tarot. This is the Llewellyn version of the Gaian Tarot. I have it here. I was surprised when I went through this deck today. There's no disabled people in this deck, but there is a wonderful selection of inclusivity. This is an absolutely gorgeous card. And a whole range of practices and people and cultures who are connected with the earth, and who, yeah, like this is gorgeous. And I forgot about all of the faces and the races and the people of color and the different earth-based practices in this deck. Jimmy Carter in the Gaian. Do you think that's Jimmy Carter? I see Asian skin in that face. I don't see Jimmy Carter. I really like this card. And this one. Oh my God. Look at that. That's so beautiful. I think that's why I like the new Pride Tarot. It's very, very inclusive. Yeah, very inclusive. You didn't say very, very. I said very, very. So yeah, so that's the Gaian Tarot. Oh, and Jen, I absolutely loved you trimmed your Folarcos Tarot. I have not trimmed mine, and I think I am going to. I was I'm just reading your comment. Yes, so Jen trimmed her Folarcos Tarot. Look at this one. This is one of the Knights. Absolutely stunning. And so I guess it makes sense, right? Because you can trim it from the back. And so I'm going to show you a few cards from the Folarcos Tarot. Like, I think the white folk are done beautifully in this deck. And that's something that I wanted to mention too. You know, like white folk seem to be lumped into this group. And when I was growing up, there was a lot of racism and a lot of jokes about people from different white countries, different European countries, and people weren't so kind and nice to even different ethnicities from different countries where people are Caucasian. So in my background, these are all from the Folarcos Tarot. In my background, even the racism in Canada has been horrible towards certain Europeans. And even though, isn't that ridiculous? It's so ridiculous because every single white person in Canada came from a European country somehow, some way. Yeah, oh, this one is just so pretty. I love this card. Yeah, I don't understand where the hatred comes from. I'm a fan of Outlander, and I think for the most part that TV series has done a really beautiful job. And I'm showing this card because I think we're not only looking at people of color here. Tonight I want to talk about inclusivity of all nations and all races and all kinds of people. You know, I think that's an important thing to keep in perspective. And I know I have lots of family in California, and the Hispanic population is treated horribly still to this day in a lot of California communities. Just the way, and Cubans as well too, right? So it's not just right now what's going on definitely is about Black people, but other groups have definitely been marginalized in horrific ways. So I have to show the Marielle, of course. This deck really rocks my boat. Oh my God. Doesn't rock my boat. It really, what's the opposite expression? I suppose it rocks my boat. This deck makes me, I don't know what the words are. I love working with this deck. Mary White must be this incredible soul. I've seen a few interviews with her, and I found her very humble. But for somebody to create a deck like this with so much cultural inclusivity and so much depth. So last week, we also talked a little bit about cultural appropriation. And so when a deck creator creates a deck like this, and she is not from all of the ethnicities and all of the cultures that are represented in this deck, does she have a right to create a deck like this? I don't know. I don't feel like there's tokenism. I don't feel like any particular culture has been misrepresented. And if there is anybody out there in YouTube land that feels that the Marielle has misrepresented any particular culture, then please speak up and educate me, because I'm here to be educated, and I want to have these conversations, and I want to learn more, and I want to understand more. And when I make a mistake, when I say something and put my large feet in my mouth, it's only because I don't know. I don't know any better. And so thank you for educating me, and thank you for informing me in a way that I wasn't informed before, because that was never, ever my intention to not, to exclude or to support a deck creator who perhaps I shouldn't be supporting, like, educate me. I want to hear what your thoughts are. So let's go to, I got to go back. Let's see here. So yes, I think that's my next trimming project, is I'm going to trim the Fularcos. All right, going back to Kyle's comment, it's not just the color of one's skin, it's the differences in the culture as well, I think, for sure. I've got some notes here about some other stories I want to tell you. I just thought about my dry cleaning story. This is a funny story. I'll try to remember to tell you. Hatred can be from some type of fear and lack of education, for sure. When Ange was young, she says, we were called savages and drunks regarding the First Nations. That's so sad. So sad. So I can speak to that a little bit. So I mentioned on one of my videos recently, so on Wednesday, I think it's every other Wednesday, we call it Welfare Wednesday. It's the day the welfare checks are handed out. And on those Wednesdays, our store is pretty busy because people have money. and they come in to buy their incense or something. It's the store that I work is just full of beautiful treasures. And they like to look and they like to be there. And so does, it's a very, anyway, those days are busy. And that's a horrible kind of expression. Oh, it's Welfare Wednesday. Look who's here. And there's a lot of souls who are very, very troubled and wandering about. And there's a home. That's not a home. It's like, I don't know what you would call it. It's a support center for the First Nations people who are struggling with life. And sometimes I've had people come into the reading room and they're just in no particular space for a reading, and a reading is not going to serve. So usually what I do is I go outside in front of the store and I sit on the bench and I just listen and I let them talk. And if I feel it's appropriate, I offer something, but for the most part, I just listen. And my experience has been that there is so much anger and nowhere to process it and nowhere to put it. And so for me, just to hold space and to listen, I feel is the best thing or the only thing in a situation like that I can do. Because a reading is just, it's not going to help at all. It's just like there's so much that needs to be vented, and yeah. And so that's why I chose to do the men's night. Did I tell you? I told you I did the readings at the men's night. So the First Nations band invited me to do readings. They have men's nights every now and then, like every quarter or so. And it was pretty much the same thing, holding a lot of space. The chief actually sat with me for, 40 minutes or so. And I just listened to his stories, his residential school stories and all his other ones. And it was really incredible and eye-opening. And every time I go to one of those events, it's just, seriously eye-opening. So yeah. So Ange, it's just horrible. My heart goes out to you and your family. And I hope that your community is slowly, I hope that's shifting, but I'm fully aware how it's very much a reality, and the Aboriginal communities are not treated with respect for the most part. It's very sad. And you were bullied by the kids. And most of them were all descendants of First Nations people. It's terrible. In my kindergarten, she told me that I should not play with my best friend because she was Black. I did not know color at that point in my life, and my mom took the school apart. 1972. And Jen says, I think Mary White became very well educated throughout the process of the deck. Uh-oh, I was way back in the comments and then they disappeared. I might have to go back and read all these. I'm really looking forward to reading all these. Oh, and there's a few people that have come in. Melanated Carissa, hello. Of course you can join in. Yeah, and you guys, please keep talking about that. And if there's something you want me to read aloud, put at Integrative Healing with Sadhana, and I will for sure read it out loud. Yeah, no, I think this is also, it's really important that these stories are heard and that the names are said aloud, and that we find a way to share these stories and remember these stories. Oh, and I didn't think about this. Okay, so what is it called? Okay, maybe one of you can help me. And I watched both of them. So I'm talking about a TV series. Setting is San Francisco. And Olympia Dukakis is the star. And she is a trans woman. And she is in her 70s. And she has a large home and she rents out all the rooms in the home. And there's a lot of trans and gay and lesbian people in the home. It is the most incredible series. It only lasted one season. And it just, oh my God, it just moved me so deeply. And so then I read on Wikipedia or somewhere that it was based on an older series. And so then I went back and I watched the original series from the 60s or something. And again, anyway, if you are looking for some really great LGBTQ plus TV shows, this one was amazing. I hope somebody knows what I'm talking about. Have any of you seen this series? Oh, what's it called? City. It's called something City, I think. Maybe it'll come to me. And it's Olympia. It's Olympia Dukakis, I'm sure, in the current one. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a story. I've got a few. So from 1985 to 1988, I lived in Japan. So the first time I went to Japan, I stayed for 3 years, a little over 3 years. There were no teaching jobs in British Columbia. And I had a choice of either going to the US or going to Japan, and I chose to go to Japan. And toward the end, so I stayed 2 years in quite a rural community. And then the third year, I moved to Tokyo, and I lived in a suburb of Tokyo. And this was towards the end of the 3 years. And I was on the subway during rush hour in Tokyo. No, it couldn't have been. It must have been later at night because I was looking across the aisle. You could actually see the people across sitting on the seats. And I was pretty tired. And I was looking across to the other side of the subway at all the faces across the way. And I had this really weird experience. Like I was looking at this person and this person and this person, and I was seeing people that I knew. So like I was seeing I don't know what I was seeing, but I was seeing familiar people, not Japanese people. I was seeing white people. I was seeing, like an Irish friend. I was seeing an Indian friend. I was seeing a friend from high school. Like I was seeing all these different, I don't know, it's so hard for me to explain. A whole row of Japanese people, but I wasn't seeing Japanese people. I was seeing similarities of the souls of people that I had connected to. It was kind of I don't know. I don't have any words to describe what it was, but it was just really profound. It was a profound experience. And this kind of thing continued. Like I would, and people don't like it when you stare at them, but we'd be looking at some of my Japanese friends, and it's like, I want to say, are you really Japanese? I don't see the Japanese. I see beyond it. I see through it. And it was kind of this huge transformation for me in looking and seeing people and seeing people's eyes and seeing through people's skin, right? To see their soul. It was this crazy experience. And I don't know whether I was seeing past lives or what I was seeing, but it was pretty amazing. Tales of the City. Yay, that's it. Thank you, Jamie. So Tales of the City, there's the current series and then there's the older series. And the current one is just fantastic. So it's the older one, but it's older. Yeah. Kristen, hi, welcome. She says it's very important for us white people not to address racism like it is a sprint. Slow and steady and not drowning in making social media posts, for sure. That's a really good point. Yeah. Okay. So here's a funny one. So this is also a Japanese story. I was in Japan. I was at the dry cleaners, and the woman who ran the dry cleaning shop was behind the curtain on the other, like doing the work on the other side. And I'm on the other side, saying hello, good morning. Is anybody there? I have a couple of dresses for dry cleaning. I don't know, whatever I was saying in Japanese. And then she comes out behind the curtain and she's looking around, and it's like she doesn't see me. She's looking for a Japanese person. And I thought, okay, this is really weird. And so the same thing happened to me in a taxi a couple of days later. I hopped into the taxi and I rattled off where I wanted to go. And then the taxi driver at some point looks around to me and he's like, WTF, like, what the fuck? There's no way that you said that. And so for me, it was like, okay, because that was the first time after about 3 years that I felt like I was going to be okay. My language was at a level where I was going to be okay. And maybe I could stay, and maybe everything would be all right. And that I wouldn't be, at that time I was very blonde. And of course I was in my 20s, and yeah, I looked a lot. I didn't fit in at all. But that was the first time where I felt, okay, maybe if I wanted to stay, that I could do this, and I could shift and stay. But anyway, I ended up coming home soon after that. But so one of you were saying that it's not just the skin, it's the culture, right? So it's the way that you speak, it's the way that you act, it's the way that you do your best, right? You do your best to fit in and to move gently with the culture. And of course, you're always going to stick out like a sore thumb, but you do your best to fit in. And so those are pretty sweet experiences for me. What else we got going on here in the chat? When you're in Japan, my daughter says it's better to be congruent with expectations. Yeah, it's like, so I was young and pretty and blonde, and I had a lot of boys interested in me. And it was really hard because they wanted to date me because I was a celebrity. And at first it was fun, but then it got really kind of painful because they weren't interested in me at all. They just wanted a blonde American in their car or on their arm, right? And so it got really creepy, and I pretty much stopped dating people because it just wasn't fun. And I wanted to be seen for who I was, not for what I was. And I had some pretty creepy experiences. And so there's no way that I can understand what it's like to be a person of color, but I've had a tiny, tiny little glimpse of what it feels like to not be seen for who you are and for what people think you are, right? Based on movies and TV shows and things like that. Yeah, that was, yeah. Yes. Okay, so let's look at these other decks here, and then I'll see if I can share with you a couple more things. So I think I want to talk about Stacia's deck, the Sasraibito, for sure. And Stacey Burrington is a Asian American from the Pacific Northwest. Where is the deck? And there's a few things about her deck that when I opened this deck, I use this deck every day. Oh, when I got it, it was just, I don't know, it really, really spoke loudly to me. I loved the people in this deck. I already showed you this King of Cups. And growing up on the Pacific Northwest, she would have had lots of Native American friends and been part of that. And so a little bit of that is included in her deck. And she does a really good job with diversity in body size as well, too, and body type. And maybe I've shared this story before with this card. So when I saw this card, this is not my story. This is one of my teacher's stories, actually. The first time she went to India, she wanted to shave her head before she went to the ashram because she wanted to arrive at the ashram without her hair. And in India, men, I forget exactly men don't cut women's hair or something like that. She couldn't find anybody to shave her head, basically. And so she found a friend of a friend who took her to somebody who would cut her hair. And basically, this is exactly what happened. She bent over, cut her hair, and then took her hair and just threw it into the ditch. And that was like one of those moments where it's like this perhaps in her soul was a sacred moment, right? She's getting ready to go to the ashram, but the barber throws her long hair into the ditch, where everything goes in India, at least in Kolkata. And yeah, so that card really reminded me of that choice, that transformation. And I know a lot of people have this experience outside of not just going to an ashram, right? Cutting off their hair and a huge transformation, but it just reminded me of that. And I think Stacia, for the most part in this deck, there's runes in this deck. There's so many cultures, and yeah, she did an amazing job in the Sasraibito. So that's one that's pretty special. The other ones that were in the thumbnail that I haven't shared with you, I'll talk about the fountain for a moment. In the list of questions from last week, one of the points was, and many people made this point in unpopular opinions about tarot, is that there are not enough decks, modern decks, that include a significant number of men that are not body beautiful, men that are not stereotypical. And I think that's the issue with everybody that feels excluded in a deck. It's that we don't want tokenism. We don't want to be unfavorably represented. We don't want to be stereotypically represented. And so if there is, I'm thinking, and Lauren Aletta, I love your deck. If you ever watch this video, I use it all the time, the Lumina Tarot. And I'm just thinking, like, if the Knight of Wands in that deck, right? This body, beautiful, sexy young man with his wand, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous card. But it doesn't represent a lot of young men, a lot of people. And so when I was going through the Fountain Tarot, this can't be all the cards. This isn't all the cards. So this is the Fountain Tarot. Let me pull out the whole deck. It's more than 30 anyway, because I counted them. It's more than 30. So in the Fountain Tarot, these are the cards that are obviously women. feminine energy. These are the cards that are obviously masculine energy. And these ones over here, I don't know. It's hard to, they're either an object or it's hard to say what they are. So if you're looking for a deck with a significant number of cards with a variety of men of different styles and body types and sexual orientation, this deck really does do a good job. Yeah, quite good representation there for sure. And then the other one is this one. So this deck, oddly, I shouldn't say oddly, doesn't have many women in the deck. So this is the spirit within. And so I did the same thing. I divided it into masculine, feminine, and that was the breakdown. So if you're looking for a deck that has a great representation of masculine energy, all kinds of masculine energy. Let's see if now we'll get some more close-ups. You know, and the thing about this deck that's so beautiful is, I mean, sometimes you can guess, but other times not so much, right? You can guess on the culture, but sometimes it's hard to tell. And there's a lot of body beautiful men in this deck. Let me see if I can find somebody who's not slim and trim. Hard to tell in this picture. But I think Stephen did a really good job with this deck. And so if you're looking for two in my collection anyway, that have good representation and would read really well with guys, those two decks for sure, I think, fit the bill for that. All right, where are we at here? Oh, we're going to talk about you're talking about Bangkok Airport. Yeah, I've been there too. Lightning cream skin. Oh my God, it's so sad. Yeah, and I don't think I think it's like there's so many places in the world where different cultures try to change the way they look. Like think about all the eye surgery for making bigger eyes, right? It's people are beautiful exactly as they are, and we do all these strange things to try and fit in. Now, I need to do some research on this deck. This is the Vision Quest Tarot, and I included this card in the thumbnail because I wanted to talk about it. And I need to do a little bit of research about the creators of this deck to find out their relationship with the Native American culture. And because this is a deck that when I was doing my shamanic training in Squamish with the elders in Squamish, that was out on somebody, sorry, scratching my nose, was out on somebody's table. And I was really drawn to the energy in this deck. I just felt that the energy was, especially the fire suit, was so beautiful. And I loved the native art and so many things about it. So this is one of those things where I really feel now I need to educate myself. And I think I'm guilty of not doing that in the past, of finding out what is the relationship between the deck creator and the artist with the deck that they are creating, especially if it's culturally specific, or culturally specific. I don't know. I think that is a really important question to ask, because as you know, I have many, many shamanic decks, and I have not been very discriminating in doing that kind of research. And I know which shamanic decks resonate with the teachings that I have studied, And those are the ones that I tend to use because I feel comfortable with those teachings, and I've learned those teachings from Native First Nations people in Canada, as well as Indigenous Native people in Peru. So those teachings have come through a direct line, not through a series of white people. But I still feel like I need more education in that regard. Yeah. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I think it's an important step. It's a really an important step. Let's talk about the Urban Tarot by Robin Scott. So Robin is transgender, and I hope I have this right. So the Fool in this deck is Robin before her surgery, before the transition. Where is the Fool card? I should have pulled it out. Just give me 1 second here. And then the card, then there's also a card of her marriage, of her wedding, of their wedding. Oh my God. I should know better. One of my daughters is, I don't know what she is. She's polyamorous. She came out when she was 18 and declared herself a lesbian, but she also likes men. So she's bi. That's what she is. So this is Robin. This is the deck creator in a man's body. And then there's a picture of their wedding. And so I slapped myself on the face because I should know better. But you know what? It's hard. These changes take time. And I think we need to be forgiving, and we need to be patient and gentle. Right? It's like, I want to be better. I don't want to make these kind of mistakes. I want people to feel welcome. All people to feel welcome. And psychic fair a couple of years ago, and not too far from here, I was doing readings, and the first person who came up to the table was a non-binary soul. And we had this beautiful, beautiful connection. And I shared with her my perspective on her experience in relation to yogic teachings. And through the mythology of yoga, a lot of the there's a lot of non-binary stories through the teachings of yoga, and it's very, very highly evolved spiritual people who present that way. And so I felt her journey was a sign, their journey was a sign of an evolved soul, an old soul. And we've had several meetings since then. And this fall, they will have their breast removal surgery and step into a whole new experience of life. And I am so privileged. I feel so honored to have been a part of their journey and a part of walking through it with them, and giving a little bit of guidance here and there along the way. It's been truly an honor. So another thing that is a reality is that talking about a lot of this stuff, I've lost lots of subs on my YouTube channel, and there's been some very strange comments that I've chosen to delete. And I think that being brave enough to say some of this, show my face, say it publicly, make mistakes, retract, do all kinds of things like this it's a learning experience and a learning curve. And please know that I have no intention ever of offending anyone. And yeah, I'm not going to say something because I don't want to lose subscribers, right? I'm always going to be me. I'm going to do me. And this is me. This is the real me. Yes, Kyle, we all want to do better. Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of people that don't want to do better. They're very happy in their little bubbles. And actually, it's not that they don't want to do better, they don't know. And somebody said that earlier in the chat. It's about the education. They really have no idea. And I think that's also a big part of it. It's easy to make the mistakes when it's so ingrained. Yeah, for sure. Jamie says, I think it's also important to read someone's heart when mistakes are made. Most trans people I know are pretty patient. Oh, that's awesome. One of Robin's cards is included in the Pride Tarot. I didn't know that. I don't have that deck. The fact you are so aware and loving is a great perspective. Sexuality is complex to work through, and I know it's been complex for me, not only respect, but for celebrating people. Yeah, it's a process, right? Because I'm fortunate. I feel fortunate that Uncle Bruce was in my life when I was a little kid. So it felt normal. Even though I didn't know what it was, it felt normal. And then as a teenager, right, working in the service industry, it was just part of the community. We were all part of the community, and it just was the way it was. It was really beautiful. And then when I was teaching, my first high school teaching job, one of the PE teachers was a lesbian, and that was a problem for some people. And again, it was like me going, like, really? It was 1985, and it was a problem. And it was a problem because the school where I taught was in an old European, and this makes no sense. This makes no sense. Think of all of the amazing, eccentric, homosexual, lesbian writers, artists, inspirational people that came out of Europe, right? So why would this community where I was teaching, this old European community where I was teaching, be so harsh on this PE teacher? And one of the grade 12 boys came up to me after school. It was late. I was coaching volleyball, came back after volleyball, sitting at my desk, marking or preparing for the next day or something. He comes up to me and he says to me, Miss Rollins, you should be home making dinner for your husband. I'm not shitting you. A 17-year-old boy said this to me with full sincerity in around 1986, 1987. I'm just kind of shaking remembering this. So yeah. Let's see what's going on here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all these personal stories and personal accounts. It really, I think it's great that we have an opportunity to put this out there. Ange was a hairstylist and starting from school back in the early 80s and up, and I would hang around with my friends in Montreal, and there was a village where I would hang out with them and have some fun. So, yes, okay. Let's see if there's any others. Oh, I have such a cool story from India. And if you've heard some of my stories before, I'm sorry. I don't want to be one of those people who repeats their stories over and over. And you guys know this deck. This deck. This might hurt. Is such a great deck for inclusivity in sexual orientation, body diversity, age. Yeah, POC. It's a great deck. And it's got thin white people, fat white people, and yeah, so many good things. I really wanted to show you more cards from this deck. This amazing deck. Anyway, I'm going to tell you my story from India because we're already at an hour and I need to sign off. This is a good one. When I go to India, I wear Indian clothes. And this is something that was kind of ingrained into me by the first person who I went to India with, and it does make life a lot easier. And anyway, that's neither here nor there. When we were in Tara Pete, so Tara, do you know the god, the deity Tara? So Tara Pete is this part of West Bengal. I believe that's the state that is where Tara Pete is. I've got so many stories I could tell you. Anyway, across from the temple is a cremation ground called this Smashan. And a lot of worship, a lot of practices, a lot of things. There's a lot of things that happen in the cremation grounds. And in the cremation ground, there's lots of huts. People live there. People like sadhus, people who are spiritual devotees, or people who are on that path to higher consciousness. And we were sitting in the cremation ground. I was with a group of about 6 women from North America, and our teacher, and our Indian guide. And we were sitting there listening to an Indian man. He was playing music. It was the most incredible. I can't tell you what the name of the instrument was. I have a photo somewhere. And we were encouraged to sit because his ballad, might not be the right word, was of such a high frequency that just sitting there and being around him would be not only be an honor, but it would be an amazing spiritual experience just to sit there and to be there. And so we did that. And then we were in this other little place sitting. Oh, and we were having satsang, listening to a wise person speak. And I think this was kind of all happening at the same place. So we're deep in this kind of experience. And no, I think it was the guy who was playing the music. And without losing a breath, without losing a beat, his cell phone rings. So what year was this? This was 2014. Was this 2014? Yeah, 2014. And he put his hand into his pocket, took out his flip phone, answered the call, put the flip phone away, and went right back to all that he was doing, singing these things. And I'm looking at my friends going, what just happened here? It was just the most bizarre experience. But what I took away from this was that this complete integration of life. You know, I think sometimes in our spiritual practices, we feel like we're all like kind of up here. And this sadhu it was like, yeah, I have a cell phone, so what? It's like how we live. Everybody has a phone, and it's no big deal. Yes, I'm playing my devotional music and the phone rings. I dealt with it, put it away, and I carry on. Like, it's no big deal. Like, to him, there are no waves. There is no up and down. Life is just this high frequency. It's beautiful. And it doesn't matter if I am cleaning up the cow dung in the cremation ground, or I'm sitting with other sadhus playing spiritual music. It's all spiritual. And so that was a wonderful, wonderful another experience where I saw the souls. I could see the souls of people, and you know, you just feel so lucky to be in that kind of a situation. So let me check in with the chat, and then I'll just say goodbye to everybody. And oh, good. There's more great information being shared here. Thank you for sharing that, Audrey. Oh my goodness. Kristen says his mom called. You always answer when mom calls. That's hilarious. Yes, perhaps his mom called. So yeah, and I mean, I have other decks I haven't shared with you. I wanted to maybe comment on a few others, but I think that's enough for tonight. And thank you. Thank you for being here and for listening to me. And if you have any questions or you want clarification on decks or life or my life, I really don't have any secrets, and I'm happy to share. And you can always email me or chat with me. I have a Facebook page, same name, at Healing with Sadhana. I think it is at Healing with Sadhana. My Instagram is at Healing with Sadhana. Or you can email me through my website, info@integrativehealingwithsadhana.com. And yeah, like if you want to talk or share or anything, I'm really happy. And this has been such a good talk tonight. And thank you. I feel good. I'm really glad that I did this, and I will definitely read once. It seems for me to take about 20 hours before the comments process before I can see them. So in about 20 hours or 24 hours, I will read the comments back. So again, yeah, thank you. Have a good evening, everybody, and blessings and love to all of you. Namaste.